Hello and welcome to Moral Lit, literary deep dives and discussions with me, Lieske, the author of the Unseen Operative series. If you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, The Lattice Scheme, please head over to my website, lieske.com, and you can get the new hardcover version. It is just sleek and wonderful. I got my own copy this week. Just wonderful. So check that out for a discounted price through my website. If you have not already, please subscribe to our channel. So, you may have heard phrases such as finding your truth, or what is true for you may not be true for others, often in contrast to, truth is truth and cannot change. Yet we continually see countless discourses and disagreements about what is true and what is real. What is real? It seems like a constant, continual debate over perception, belief, ideology, and circumstance. Well, I'm not here to tell you what's true. In fact, I'm not here to discuss truth as a topic itself, though it is relevant. My topic is more the battle that keeps us from truth, or rather reality, what prevents us from it or distorts it, the ongoing battle of the human mind. This is the second major theme of the Unseen Operative series. So I personally hold to the principle that truth is truth and cannot change. It's immutable, it's inarguable, just as basic facts that we as humans do not have the physical capacity to fly by ourselves. And due to the force of gravity, we are continually pulled towards the surface of this planet. And yet, there are many who will straight up argue against it and deny it even when it's right there, like they are experiencing it in that moment. So what's up with that? Well, I'll tell you what's up with that. It begins with something in our heads. What we're exploring in this series, The Unseen Operative, are the unseen forces that work on, around, and within our minds. And these forces form our perceptions and understandings of what is real, what is true, what is right, and what is not. In other words, what controls our reality. The very base of this battle is ideas. Ideas fly around us 24/7, every day, from ourselves, from social media, books, advertising, conversations, music, and so much more. They are present to us at an unprecedented speeds, just from every single direction for all sorts of purposes. And the trouble is being bombarded by billions of ideas every day kind of puts us in a constant state of needing to weed things out. And being human and not bombarded necessarily by the exact same things, based on what we search for day to day, the next, all the algorithms and whatnot, we can be led to all sorts of diverse ideas. And is that a problem? Well, let's explore it. Ideas are powerful. This is a line that Azure says specifically when discussing things with Wagner in the, 2/3 of the way through the book. Ideas are powerful. And if you are fed or feed yourself an idea long enough, you will begin to hold on to it. Now, this is what I call the principle of ingestion. What you consume, your body's cells will try to use. This comes from my health science major, but also just science in general. In fact, your cells are going to attempt to adapt to whatever you feed them, even if it's not good for you. For example, if you ingest too much sugar, yes, you may gain weight, and yet at the same time, your cells are going to be malnourished. Seems contradictory, but it's the way it is. In spite of adapting to the frequent sugar intake, the truth is your cells cannot use that molecule for any of their processes. Only certain molecules can be broken down into key pieces that fit into certain places. Certain receptors act as catalysts for certain functions, or can be broken down to provide for certain functions. Just because I cram a whole bunch of keys into a lock that maybe they slide in and fit, it does not mean they're going to unlock the door. That is the principle. If you stop eating sugar after having been addicted to it for a while and your body adapting to it, you stop eating, you resist it, your body reacts like crazy. You crave it. It becomes very hard to feel normal for a while after cutting it out. For drugs, we call this withdrawal, and the symptoms are not pretty. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. So your body becomes so used to whatever you attempt to fuel it with, whether good or bad, that when you change it, the body reacts. It can feel very uncomfortable, cause strange reactions you might not expect, or maybe you have heard of, but, still experiencing it is not fun. Even when you switch to healthier choices, you might think, I'm giving my body the right fuel. Why are you hurting me, bloating me, giving me a headache and nausea? Should you not accept this healing? It's a phenomenon. The body doesn't know what's good and healthy anymore. You've become so used to what you've been ingesting for so long that the wrong fuel has become the body's truth, expectation. It expects you to feed it sugar so it doesn't know exactly what to do now that you're giving it broccoli. Taste buds are the same. I used to eat a ton of chocolate and sugar. Man, I loved chocolate and sugar. And then after a series of issues, to keep it short, that led me to circumstances that kind of forced me to become a healthy eater. I went years without sugar. And now it literally tastes like soap to me. I don't like it. My body doesn't like it either. On the flip side, I know many people who eat unhealthily and, the taste and the texture of fruits and vegetables, it just doesn't cut for them. And I used to be that way, like bananas. Whew, it wasn't a texture thing. I didn't like bananas. Moved to the Philippines. Now I eat 1 to 2 bananas every single day. I live off bananas. Bananas are life. But you see, our minds are literally the same. The pattern is the same. What we intake determines large measure of our reality. It determines what we're used to intaking as well, kind of what we rely on. And when our ideas and our ideals are challenged to what we're used to, we resist. Changing minds is hard. Why? Because what we ingest becomes our truth, our reality, our values. It's really hard to counter that. So just a little bit of relatability there. I once had an eating disorder. Also, having been malnourished and gaining weight triggered some major depressive disorder. So I kind of know what it's like to go through the mind-changing process. It's, for lack of a better term, it can be a sort of hell trying to retrain your mind from these ideas these thoughts, these patterns, these realities that have become everything that you are, even though they didn't used to be. It's hard to reverse that. It's a nightmare. It hurts. It literally physically hurts. Internally, emotionally, all of it. The point is that it's hard. Ideals will counter, even what is real and true in those situations. So kind of off the eating disorder thing, people will legitimately believe that they're fat when they are skin and bones. That wasn't me. I didn't have body dysmorphia to that extreme anyways. I think all eating disorders have a little bit of it. Mine was a restrictive eating disorder, fear of food. But still, you're led to believe things even though it's not technically physically true. So I have at times literally believed insane ideas that I know are not true about myself, my house, my family, what God was telling me, etc. And it hurts because it's contradictory to the values that I believe in. But I still allowed those ideas into my head. I let them kind of become my reality. And in those brief seasons, because those ideas are powerful, and more so when they're coupled with pain or a current circumstance that seems to relate, it becomes hard to reframe and revive reality to the mind. It's hard to accept anything other than what our version of reality is. I was in my health coaching course the other day, and one of my classmates, he said it so well. He said, we all think we're living reality, but what we're really living is our idea of reality. So that's kind of what I'm getting at there with these ideas, because what we ingest becomes our truth, our reality, and our values. So why do I share this? Because the ideas we ingest really matter if they impact us that much. It's a very simple thing. It's a very simple part that changes the trajectory of anything. Just like a slight angle of difference in a plane can take you to a whole different country. So let's dial it back down a little bit to the everyday relatable things. Can you think of the last time you asked Google for an answer, just for something real quick, when does daylight savings end? I bet it gave you a real quick answer. I bet you believed it. You might have seen other things alongside it too, like when does daylight savings end and legislative rulings on ending daylight savings. You may have clicked on those articles wondering, hey, did they pass that so that we don't have to change our clocks anymore, and go down a rabbit hole. One question always can lead you down a rabbit hole for sure. It can also, however, lead you to quick, convenient, and not always correct ideas as answers, especially in a day and age where AI exists. Little AI soapbox right now. Wasn't planning on this, but hey, there is so much false information, images, everything perpetuated by AI right now on the internet. What you see, you need to question whether it is real. I have seen false documents, historical documents, been changed by AI. Following the death of Charlie Kirk, how many fake AI things about Erica Kirk have I seen? Thousands. It's insane. I don't have enough words for it. To me, it's disgusting. But that's the thing that happens. Basic facts are turned around all the time on the internet. So those quick, convenient things that you're looking at, the chance that they are real could be pretty questionable. Just, Food for thought. What idea are you looking at there? So yeah, we easily ingest in our minds whatever is put in front of us conveniently, especially in our digital age. Does that make us gullible? But I would rather say we're just not all fine-tuned and determined to continually apply a healthy dose of critical thinking. And I do mean critical thinking, not cynical thinking. There is a difference. And we'll get to that in a bit when we kind of discuss why. But for now, critical thinking is not cynical thinking. Like for example, when I'm composing a research article or making major decisions, I take a good time to carefully look into the resources in front of me. Sometimes it's drudgery. I think we as humans, we have this lazy built-in, the coming generation since I've been born, that we want those quick, easy, like get it done, give me answers, especially with AI. Hey, AI can get me the resources and answers, right? So I'll just use that and save me some hours and time. Maybe that's helpful, maybe it's not. But anyways, the point is, for me personally, I want to know what resources there are to make that article. I want to make it the best I can. And there's usually a curriculum given in research articles that you have to follow in order for it to be ethical and credible. As an author, I am very well aware that 24/7 scammers are trying to get me to pay them for reviews or give them my manuscript. Oh my gosh, yes, and my book cover. They're always like, post your book cover. I saw an author do that once, and a couple days later, this was on Threads, but yeah, their cover had been redone into a different book and produced as an AI written book on Amazon. So you gotta wonder, and I'm aware that they are trying to get me. So I'm critically thinking about all of these exciting sounding deals as being scams, right? Background checks, they're worthwhile. But when I'm needing a fix for my GI symptoms or for like fixing a hole in the wall, for quickly ripening an avocado, I go to Dr. Google. I try the first things that it says, and I kind of trust that there's some efficacy to it because it links, major sites that are supposed to provide that info. It turns out you cannot quickly ripen an avocado in 1 minute or even 5 with a microwave or an oven, at least not in any way that gets you the same texture. It also turns out that eating more fiber is not the answer to my GI situation, but Google keeps telling me that it is, with all of these linked research articles. In the past, and sometimes now, I buy into these ideas and I think, well, maybe somehow I got them wrong. I'm doing it wrong. Maybe it's the altitude I live at. I question things because those messages and ideas are always there. And it can kind of make you feel crazy sometimes, thinking that you're somehow out of the know or wrong, there's something wrong with you because what's pushed at you constantly and widely appears to be right. It's accepted as right. We're constantly comparing ourselves to what's out there, the idea and the message that we're taking from it. We all do this. I had a friend that bought into the idea that butter and fats are good for the brain. People buy into the keto diet thinking that it's grand to cut out all carbs without realizing, fruits and vegetables are carbs. In fact, unless you eat only butter, eggs, meat, cheese, and oil, you are eating carbs. And also, carbs are the only fuel your neural cells, your brain cells, can use. Fact. Proven science. But the idea that cutting carbs is intrinsically good because it could decrease your weight persists. And hey, why should we be accountable for tracking and mindfully controlling our intake instead of following an idea that turned into a trend? There's also the reverse on that thought. But that just goes back to our first major theme of, accountability. Anyways, other example. My sweet husband, he messages me the other day about some phenomenon he experiences that he found some article about it being a symptom of ADHD. And I had to laugh because it's a phenomenon that all humans experience, not just people with ADHD. But he would likely never know that because he has ADHD. He's never experienced life without it. So the idea that it was a symptom of that was quickly accepted. See, circumstances really influence what ideas we let in our head. And just to highlight what that thing was, it's, sometimes in life we'll have an event to go to at the end of the day, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And so we won't do anything productive for that entire day until that event. I do that sometimes. I know tons of people that do that. I don't have ADHD, but it's a thing. Anyways, my husband's usually a superb critical thinker, so don't get any gullibility ideas there. But we all do that, is the point. Even the best of us will be swindled by or bombarded by ideas and beliefs or acceptance of an idea that we think might be a reality. Why? Because it aligns with our circumstances or our values or we're just bombarded by it, so it must be true. And that's a very dangerous road to balance on, accepting ideas that seem to fit without greater reasons or thoughts to it. Now, not all ideas are like that. Some ideas, I guess it's good for us to look at the different kinds of ideas. Some ideas, when we're bombarded by them, it feels like a systemic shock. We're not likely to accept them, or we will not accept them because they cause immense discomfort, like quitting cold turkey, smoking, or, I'm going to lift weights after 20 years. Yeah, right. I mean, I love weights, but some people, it's a repulsive idea. Anyways, in my book, the idea that someone existed that you suddenly can't remember, or that people can enter in dreams, that's a very mild and overvamped example of something that's shocking and weird. But most ideas come gradually, bit by bit, like we've been discussing, until over time we begin to mold ourselves into them. And those are the ones we're really exploring in the Unseen Operative series. These are the ones that really wage this war against our mind. The subtle ideas that frequent us enough to hold a place long enough within our minds for consideration. Nevertheless, both the sudden and shocking and the gradual ideas matter, because both the shock and the gradual intake of ideas can be good or bad or both. And whatever we let in, whatever we intake, is going to have an effect. Like, even if you're not always eating artificial sugar, let's say you just eat a whole ton of it at once, you're probably going to get diarrhea. There's always going to be a reaction. But this is in our minds. This is the war on our minds. So advertising will be like, hey, buy my product now. And unless it aligns with your values and beliefs, you'll probably ignore it to a point. Even so, a glimpse is enough to get it in your head. Like, I can tell you, I am a Mint Mobile customer, but I can tell you just about all the commercials that have been produced in the last 2 years. Why? Because I've seen them briefly enough to know, and it's in my head. Same with State Farm, Capital One, the Visa card, and I don't use all those things, but it's in my head because I've seen it once or twice. If I ask you right now to think about white lions, you can put them wherever you want, maybe behind you or on a safari, but think about those white lions. I bet you have thought about it because you heard it. It's in there. But I don't think you're going to entertain that idea, at least for the remainder of this episode. Might pop up later. Might not, but right now it's in there. Still, it's more pervasive if an idea is gradual and subtle and aligns with your values. Of course, whether it does or not, you're probably going to find yourself considering it in one aspect or another years later. You decide that aspect, but it's in your head. So, I love reading. I don't read as much as people think I do. I'm a quick reader, so I do. Okay, I should amend that. I read a lot of books and I read them fast, but I'm not continually reading, if that makes sense. So I can read 100 books in a year, but it might only occur across 3 months. Advertisements tell me I need new bookmarks or these cute little book nooks set up in my house, or these, oh man, I don't remember what they're called, but you set them up on your bookshelf and they're like little doll houses or caricatures. They're really cute. And yeah, because they're all over Google and my advertisements and Facebook and Instagram, they're so cute. That idea's in my head that maybe that would be a great idea for Christmas for me. Because the idea sticks. Opposite example, caffeine. I swore I would never drink caffeine because I knew it was bad. But research and marketing years later is telling us things that, even athletes use it. My sister started drinking it. My husband drinks it. I'm like, oh, maybe it's not so bad. I don't know, even though, he's trying to quit. But I began to entertain the idea that a little bit of caffeine might be beneficial because I was taking a medication that research was showing caffeine countered these really not great side effects of taking it. And I am super side effect sensitive with medication. So I let that idea in, tried it. I didn't become addicted to it, but I did notice the change that it had on me, and it wasn't pleasant. Point is, I bought into that idea. And ideas can change you into someone that you truly want to be, or someone you deeply regret becoming. They're that powerful when you act on them. People you once knew can become unrecognizable after ingesting a series of ideas and acting on them. Emphasis there. Ideas themselves aren't going to make you good or bad to a point. It's about acting on them and keeping them. That's what changes things, whether good or bad. So, joining something uplifting or something destructive. I once met a man in the Philippines, a super sweet, great guy. Turns out he once murdered somebody. In fact, he murdered 7 somebodies. He was part of a mob. He ingested the gospel of Jesus Christ and changed his life massively when he acted on it. At the same time, someone that I greatly admired for years wanted to be like her. She ingested all sorts of ideas, began to act on them, and it took her from somebody that I recognized to somebody that I don't anymore. And I'm not actually sure. It's not just that I don't know her anymore. I'm not sure what's real or not real with her. Very difficult. Lesser examples, again, eating disorder ideologies or blind faith versus informed faith. The point is, ideas are powerful and they compete for our minds every single day. The ones we act on make us or break us. What you buy into now can make you or break you. And the good news is the bad is just as reversible as the good. It's all changeable. That's what I'm kind of demonstrating here. But the change is rarely comfortable when instantaneous. It's always gradual. So if you're going to change into something that's not exactly aligned with your values, it's going to come gradual. If you're changing into something better, aligned with your values, it also comes gradual. That's the appeal of health coaching to me. We empower ourselves gradually. We also break ourselves down gradually. And, that's a basic principle that's kind of taught in like medical therapy and coaching fields in general. Healthy and positive habits learned and applied regularly in increments gradually. They become successful and lasting. It's not always comfortable, but it's easier with bits. So there's a model that I personally keep. It's that ideas lead to beliefs, lead to feelings, lead to behaviors. We'll explore, when I get to book 2, there will be an episode about how feelings can determine our reality. But for now, just understand that our thoughts control a good majority of our emotions. It is a root, not the only root, but it is a root. And as I said before, ideas and emotions, when acted on, form who we are, our perceptions of reality. So another major point we need to consider with ideas is the resources, the people, the media, the words you tell yourself, all of these roots, all of these sources where you get them, they matter. We have an ability to research, to discern between what is good and what is harmful. And I truly hope that we begin to do that more intentionally, to question ourselves. Where did I get this idea? Is it correct? Why do I believe it? How do I know it? Critical thinking. An easy way to practice this. Every time you go on social media or see a billboard, ask yourself, what message is this telling me? What idea is being presented? Run down those questions. Test it out. Explore it. How do you know if it's good or bad? Scientific method, y'all. A good fountain can't produce bitter water. A bad tree can't bring forth good fruit. It's that simple, and yet that complex. Because some bad things start off good until their long-term consequences catch up. So yeah, testing things out. See if they work initially, but do not accept an idea or resource merely because it gives temporary results. We need to be asking questions with both short-term and long-term visions. How do I do that? I don't want to wait 20 years to find out that I'm addicted to smoking and that it was the wrong choice. You're right. You don't want to do that. And you don't have to. See, the long-term testing has, in great measure, already been done for most of us in most cases. See, in the world that we live in, the age that we live in, again, with that internet and everything, your problem, your question, your idea has in fact been tried by someone before. As I've said in previous episodes, history doesn't repeat, we repeat. We have articles, books, studies, the experiences of countless people who have already tested these things out or are in the process of, a few years ahead of us. It's worth investing time in hunting down those good, abundant, incredible resources that can show us the long-term outcomes of these ideas that we're considering, of these questions that we have of our beliefs. And again, back to the AI, make sure that, like I said, look for credible resources, but they are there. Credible resources are there. In fact, they could be as close to you as somebody in your community. We are each other's best resource, if we're being honest, which I do believe when it comes to a lot of things, most people are being honest about their personal experience. So yeah, test out the idea for yourself in the short term if you must. Examine those long-term impacts that others have experienced before. For example, meditation and prayer. There's so many studies on meditation and prayer every day, being able to help improve emotional, mental health, resilience, self-empowerment. Like the research is there. It may not work for everybody, but let's say you try it. You do it out a little bit each day. It's uncomfortable and maybe hard, but if you persist, let's say it worked out for you. Pretty great, huh? Let's say you try it and it doesn't work out for you. Nothing, The long-term research already shows that there's no bad side effect for trying to meditate or pray. That's a safe one. That's a good one to try. So another thing, hard does not equal bad. Difficulty does not define nature. So while you're testing all these things out, you need to hold on to a growth mindset with your ideas, especially. The belief that with time, adaptation, consistency, results will follow. They usually do. And also consider the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Those ideas are pivotal in and of themselves in everything that we attempt. If you have a fixed mindset, you try something, whether it's good or bad, you'll often stop at the first result. And that result becomes your entire reality because your ideas that form around that result. This didn't work, or it didn't magically instantaneously happen. That's it, done. But with a growth mindset, you can expand upon, refine, support, or even refute the idea. You can keep learning. You can keep growing. We should not be buying into all or nothing thinking. There's all this in this world. We like to use but or. I hate, man, when I'm typing, Google always wants to fix any time that I write either and or, both and. It's like, no. It's either or. It can't be both. But some things are. Expand our minds, have a growth mindset. Granger's theory on mistakes. Oh, I can't wait till we get to that episode. It's a good one for growth mindset. My own experience with a fixed mindset. I bought into this idea that a fertility program or a vagus nerve program could resolve my problems of functional amenorrhea and my GI issues. Why? Because listening to the people talk about their problems, they matched my symptoms, it matched my circumstance. And so I thought to myself, this is it. Joined the program, didn't act on it very well, and guess what? Nothing happened because my fixed idea was that just being in the program was someone going to fix it. There was no growth there. It was just the idea of it. I loved the idea of it, and the idea was fixed. The idea that therapy alone cures us without accountability is also a fixed idea. Ideas and thoughts, like I said, they make or they break our experience, our reality, and the cool thing is that we control them. We can accept, refute, entertain, or dismiss them. Ideas and thoughts become our knowledge, and that is powerful either way. Reframing and refuting poor ideas for better ones is particularly empowering. That's something that we work with in health coaching. For example, to my fellow authors. This applies to anyone trying to create something. I believed when I started writing the Lattice Scheme, which was a crazy idea that didn't come from me anyhow, but different story there. My ideas were good. I thought my ideas were good. I thought my words were good. I wrote a lot of nonfiction articles. I have a blog for nonfiction articles, which isn't linked to my website or my book or my name, but so I thought I'm a good writer. But like many of you, I get done writing the manuscript, editing through it, whatever, give it to a proofreader and an editor, and it's not perfect. Suggestions were made, and it brought me so down for weeks. Why? Because the idea that I allowed to frame my attitude was that my book was not good because it needed corrections, or I didn't take corrections well. And that's extremist thinking, but we all do it. We think good equals perfect and perfect equals done, and it doesn't. Perfection is impossible, and just being complete with a manuscript doesn't mean it's quality. Just having an idea doesn't mean it's quality. We get in these fixed mind steps, and they tempt us to give up when our reality is shaken. But for me, a new idea came. It came from my favorite YouTube trainer. She said, what if failure, or in this case imperfection, is just you pushing into the next better version of you? So I let that idea mold in me. I thought, well, what about my book? What if editing more, adding more, gave my grammar even more quality-like, makes it even better? What if I get to the end of this process, even though maybe it takes 7 times, it took 7 times of re-editing the Lattice Scheme, but with some serious revamps in there that were disheartening at first, but it became better and I got excited. I started getting excited towards the 5th, 6th, and 7th editing. My book is so much better than it was. I can't believe what I thought was good now compared to what it is now. Like, I literally did a fist pump when it was done because I'm like, this is fantastic. I can't believe it. It's super satisfying. So my reality became that, I can do hard things. I might fall short, but that's not bad. This is part of an ongoing process to become better. And that one idea, it had a powerful ripple effect. It allows me to give myself and others grace. And that's why when I get on Instagram, I see people whining about, editing is so hard and this process crushes my soul and people's bad reviews crush me. I'm like, no, they don't have to. You can grow from all of this. And it's awesome. It's powerful. It works. So yeah, just having an idea to write a book, that's not good enough. Sorry to all those authors out there, wannabe authors, if you're like, I have a great idea for a book, cool. That's not good enough. You need to act on it, not just write it. Everyone's like, just write the book, you're good. It's not that simple. Don't just write the book. Write the quality of the book that you want. Make it something timeless. Put in that tough work and effort to get it grammatically sound, to make it timeless and relevant, to make it something powerful, reflective, something that really, gets readers' hearts. Make it something incredible and not just something that, 10 years from now, 5 years, maybe even 1 year from now, nobody cares about because it's the same as every other quick write out there. We have the power to make something incredible if we have that growth mindset. For my book, the intellect, the grammar, the refinement, the values that I put in there, I believe that they are 5-star value. I'm not shocked when I get 5-star reviews. If I get lower, I won't be shocked either because it's not for everybody. But, to me, that's what it is. Because I didn't just believe my idea that things could get better. I've ingested it. I've let it work in me and I've acted on it and gained experience from it. So knowledge is not merely the idea itself. It's the truth and experience gained from when an idea is acted upon and found. And again, how do you know for sure long-term or, short-term that the idea is good or true? Where does it lead? It matters where the idea leads long-term and also why. Why usually stems from the root of the idea, the source of it, and the purpose of it, but I want us to look at that more from an internal perspective. Here comes the critical thinking. When you have an idea and you want to know where the idea came from, why does it matter where it came from to you? Because if it's coming from someone or something that only cares about you as a number rather than a person, probably not a fantastic idea. It's probably not actually going to make, you happy or whatever it claims. And even if it does, what value does it actually have when you're just a number to it? If it comes from someone or something bent on empowering you, helping you be healthy, happy, strong, it's more likely to be a good thing to, buy into, act on. We should all be asking that about ideas, not just the source, but like in doing it, there's something that really matters. Why am I asking this? What is my why in this idea? What is my why in keeping this idea? What is my why in acting on this idea? There's got to be some reason we allow the ideas, especially ones that, websites give, into us. Because too often we let websites take charge of both our research and our reality and our reasoning, especially with AI. Are we questioning these sources because we genuinely want to learn and grow, to understand if they're credible and true? Or are we asking because we need someone to blame or criticize when it doesn't work out? Or when the idea fails? Those are just two options out of like an infinite number of reasons for simplicity's sake and, podcast length. But, I could rant on about laziness and accountability forever. I could rant on about how many faithful people I've seen become faithless because the idea that God was going to sweep in and make something magical work and it didn't work out that way. Their why was someone else being accountable for it. Anyways, faith is a whole nother topic. But the point on, blaming, looking for somebody to blame or criticize when things don't work out, that latter motive is often what happens when people leave their faith or their past interests, their pathways, their trajectories, their lifestyle, all of that. Not always, but often that's in there somewhere. I mean, sometimes people change their faith for growth and understanding or their personality or their health and their lifestyle. And those are the empowering things. The key is when someone leaves or changes themselves out of offense, out of hurt, out of anger, their reasoning is generally looking to criticize, scapegoat, throw away personal accountability in some way. That is what I've observed. And often you'll find in such cases, there is disgruntlement, bitterness, and critical speech involved. Is that good? No, but it happens. The point is why you choose to examine ideas of yourself and others matters. Just like the resources that they come from matters. Our reasoning always matters. Our scrutiny or open-mindedness based on an idea matters because ideas, these are notions so powerful and foundational that we become so attached to them, we form them as a part of who we are. Ideas become the foundation of our values, of who we are. We act on our ideas as filtered through our values and our reasoning. When your values don't align with what you know is good, dissonance arises. Trouble arises inside you. It's really good to kind of pay attention to that dissonance. Why do I feel uncomfortable with this? Being uncomfortable doesn't necessarily equate bad. Like I said, that's not in itself an indicator that something is wrong or good, which is why we need to be questioning, where does this lead? When it comes to ideas, just first, foremost, always examine your values and why you hold them in light with the idea, an examination with the idea. Evaluate your ideas and your thoughts. Do they align with your values? Why or why not? Which ideas do you consume most? From what sources do they come? If there is the discongruity there, give it attention. Examine it. Be curious about it. But know this, that peace only really comes when the ideas you ingest and the thoughts you act on align with your values. When they don't, all sorts of discongruity is going to happen, not just with your reality, but life in general, the way your body even functions. Our minds are powerful. Incredible things happen. Like there's so much science behind it, behind our nerves, behind our relaxation, all of it. And it all starts with what's in our head. I really don't like how there's a negative connotation in society when something is happening, someone's having a struggle and people say, oh, it's all in your head. And we're like, oh, geez, you're calling me crazy. And that's not it at all. It is in our heads, but it's not that we're crazy. It's that we have control in our heads. And their opinion doesn't really matter if they think you're crazy, ditch that friend or whatever. Like that's not really helpful or supportive to tell somebody that it's in their head because like implying that it's crazy. It is helpful to suggest to them that it is in your head as in there is something you can control and do about it. Let's examine it together. Biases and flip sides there. But yeah, it is in our head and it matters because we have those controls. So just thinking about ideas, I've often seen from my peers gradually going from ideas and letting them change who they are. They go from one career to another, from, smoking to alcohol and interest in a social group to the next. And, while it's not my place to judge, here's the thing that comes to me because of observing the ideas that they act for or that they ingest and then act on. It's that they're changing so radically all the time that I don't actually know what they stand for. Because what they support today, who they are today, might be different tomorrow. If you're letting ideas constantly change your reality and who you are, you become unreliable. There has to be values and integrity grounding our ideas, and we have to hold to them and meter our ideas with those values, because if we don't, there is no integrity in us. And living without integrity, living without honesty in yourself, that is so complex. Again, I can say that as a mystery author because every time I write something like that, it becomes so complex. But in myself as well, anytime that I don't align an idea or an action with my values, it doesn't sit well. It gets complicated. I can sense not only that my honesty is gone, my integrity is gone, but that my self-esteem kind of drops. If I can't depend on myself to stay true to my values and let, control my ideas in that foundation, who can depend on me? We have to be able to do that for ourselves. It's just very important. It's something that I'm very passionate about, just having had so many experiences with mental health, and not just me. My father, who was abusive, bipolar. His side of the family has all sorts of mental disorders. Like, it's the same thing. It's hard to rely on somebody, not because they have a mental disorder. That doesn't make somebody dependent or not dependent. I know I have friends who have depressive disorders and bipolarity, and I can depend on them because they stick to their values. They control their thoughts. They fight and endure through these things. The point is, it's not about your circumstance or condition. It's about your control and your honesty with it. So anyways, here's the litmus test for ideas and the thoughts that we ingest. 1, why do I hold these beliefs? 2, where do they come from? 3, why do I accept or reject them? 4, what's my why? 5, where do they lead? Short-term, long-term. And 6, most importantly, are they aligned with or against my values? What we consume in our minds determines our behavior, which shapes our experiences. That is our reality. The ideas we accept and act upon create that reality. And that reality can be either good or bad or both, depending on where it leads or whether it's founded on enduring truth and values that we hold, or if it's just based off of fleeting emotion. Maybe that's why I struggle with romance so much, the way that the media portrays it, because it's not real to me. It's fleeting. It passes. And life goes on and you realize, disappointment after that. Good thing to ask myself all the time is, what stories do I tell myself? Those are the basic ideas that I think we all should start with. What stories do I tell myself about myself? What stories do I tell myself about my situation? About this choice that I'm making, about who I am? Sometimes the story I tell myself comes from past traumatic experiences, and it helps me to speak to myself to identify the source of that belief and to question whether it holds true value to me. Because I am not my trauma. I am not my condition. My brother-in-law, the first time I met him, he shook my hand and he said, "I'm autistic." And I'm like, "You have autism, but you are not your condition." I told him, you are your name. I said it in a nicer way than that, but that is the fact of it. Are we telling ourselves, is our story based on our circumstance, or are we a person with power in that circumstance? What story am I telling myself? What story am I telling myself about what will happen if I do X, Y, and Z? Or if I act on this idea? What story am I telling myself about this idea? Does it hold true value? I found that it's easier for me to change my behavior once I realize that certain thoughts or habits do not align with my values of growth, improvement, and self-efficacy. So when I see that, that's the key, is being able to recognize and see it, that honest inventory, these questions, I can refute a false idea and counter it. It's a battle. This is a battle. This is the point, this is a battle on our human minds, on our lives. But it's one worth fighting, and it's one worth winning, because we can win it. Quite easily, actually. Easy doesn't mean not hard. I mean, like, not in severity or difficulty level, I suppose, but in simplicity. It is simple, though difficult. There's a better way to articulate it. Kind of like, changing my perspective while editing a book, or those who engage in therapy to train their minds towards a growth mindset. That mindset empowers rather than obscures the good things in life. Pain is valid, yes, but choosing to dwell on it is a choice. It's not the world's fault, nor anyone else's. It's the idea, the idea that life is miserable comes from choosing to ingest self-limiting beliefs. Those ideas may define our experience, but they don't actually define literal truth, even if it's our reality. What we feed our minds will either make or break us. We create misery when we continually consume what leads to it. If you want to hyperfixate on life being unfair, you will always feel and believe and see life as unfair. Same as the opposite. If life is roses all the time, you will only see life as roses until something breaks that, because something will. Misery can also be broken by a good experience. It's the ideas that we let determine our reality. It's messy sometimes, but messy doesn't mean it's not simple, because at our core as human beings, we all want the same things: to feel validated, to feel at peace, to be happy, to belong, to feel loved. That is good and real and lasting. Ideas, actions, behaviors that don't lead honestly to peace and belonging, not just temporarily, but long-term, need to be questioned. In evaluating ideas, we are accountable for being honest. Dishonesty only blinds us and leaves us shocked to when things fail, because those things were built on false or self-deceptive notions. Honest evaluation paired with choices that lead to peace, joy, happiness, and genuine belonging will lead us there. Like attracts like. There's a fun principle there. What you look for, you get. What you let in your brain, you get. If you want a healthy body, ingest good things. If you want a healthy mind, do the same. We have power to fill our lives with good things by holding to, ingesting, and acting upon ideas that are honest and good. We're accountable to seek those ideas, those good and powerful ideas, not just for ourselves either, but for the impact it has on others, because our lives are not really our own. That's the question that I've asked before. Are our lives really our own? It matters. None of us is perfect in this, of course. I'm not. That's why I'm exploring it by writing this series and talking about it. It's all the more reason to work on our own ideas and extend grace to ourselves and others. Hold on to the idea that we're all trying and failing and getting back up together. We're in the same boat. Let's be a team about it. That idea alone is powerful. It's what builds communities and enables groups to achieve amazing, impossible things in spite of their circumstances. Those are the things that we make movies out of and cheer about. Those feats that come on these growth ideas that have value. And that's what brings happiness in any circumstance. Consider, for example, life in the Philippines. Many people thrive there, even though they have so much less than we do. So much less rights, less, possessions, less prosperity. But they're so joyful because their ideas are rooted in their values and aligned, and they act on them regularly in productive and peaceful ways. They experience happiness because they've cultivated and embodied the ideas that lead to it. And we can do the same, because ultimately the truth is going to remain, and we can find it with the right ideas. So I just bombarded you. With all sorts of ideas that you can choose to ingest, frequent, iterate, or act on. That is up to you. And I do that throughout my series. Whenever Wagner talks, what ideas he's saying? Pay attention there. Pay attention to the little ideas in any book that you read. These are the literary deep dives that I'm asking you to take a look at. What ideas in what you're reading are you ingesting for any genre? What idea are you letting in your head from what it's saying? And how is that affecting your reality? Good to think about. So I'll just leave you with this one question. What ideas are you ingesting and acting on today?